Hey, good afternoon, folks. You're watching Myrtle Beach Living Live. I'm Todd Cartner, your host, and I appreciate you guys watching today, whether you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter. We're going to be live here every Wednesday at 12:30 Eastern Time, and we're talking about all the things in Myrtle Beach, from entertainment to dining to shopping and local businesses, and, of course, my favorite topic, real estate. And today I have with me Angie Knight, who is an attorney with Grand Strand Law Group right here in Myrtle Beach. And Angie is someone I do a lot of business with. So let's see if we can get Angie on the screen here. There we go. Hey, Angie.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to, we just saw each other about an hour, maybe not even an hour ago now, and had a closing. So that was awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you come from? What brought you to Myrtle Beach?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Georgia. And after law school, I decided I wanted to practice law on the beach. And because my family had always vacationed here at Myrtle Beach, this seemed like the logical choice to me. And so I packed my bags and moved to Myrtle Beach and started clerking with a judge. That was my first job after law school, was clerking with one of the judges here in Horry County. And then realized that, litigation is nice and fun and great, but that's not for me. So I wanted to do real estate planning and probate. So I started my own firm, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And that was, I guess, 2009 when I started the firm.
2009. Wow. So that's kind of how I got to Myrtle Beach too. I've been here for almost 32 years now, and my family was up in Winston-Salem area, and we actually used to vacation down here the same way. And I said, let's go to Myrtle Beach so we can make it a permanent vacation.
I think that's the way it works for a lot of people.
It does. So, so how long you been an attorney now?
Since 2006. So 3 years longer than I've had my own firm. So what does that make it?
Yeah, right. That's 14 years. 14 years.
Yeah.
I guess. Wow, that's crazy. So you, I guess when you clerked with the attorney or with the, was it a judge?
Yes.
Is that what you said? They did mostly criminal law. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the judge was a circuit court judge, and he did all criminal cases and civil cases. This judge in particular did seem to do a lot more criminal than civil. So, yeah, and it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, I understand. It's totally different. I agree. So, so you've been choosing to do real estate law, and you've been doing that ever since. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, ever since I started out on my own, I've focused all on real estate planning, probate, and business law.
Well, that's a good thing. You want to, you can perfect your profession as long as you stay focused on it. You don't want to go out there and do some. You don't want to have you don't want to choose an attorney that only does real estate and does 2 or 3 transactions a month. They're not going to represent you the best. So that's
right. I tell people I like to stay in my wheelhouse.
There you go. That's smart. Guys, I didn't tell you at the beginning of the show, but if you have any questions, just type them into the comment section below whatever medium that you're watching on, and we'll be glad to ask Angie those questions here on air. Or you can give us a call at 843-246-7474, and we'll try to get you on as well. So, Angie, we've had a lot of agents on from all over the country, from Renton, Washington, Salem, Oregon, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We had a couple on last week from Tennessee. And one of the questions we've asked all of them, and I want to find out from you too, is how has COVID affected your business?
COVID has made my business boom. For about a month there was a little bit of a lull. People were a little hesitant about what was going on. But then immediately, as soon as people were let loose, they all went crazy and started buying and selling. And so we actually had one of the largest months we've ever had this past July, and doubled our normal number of closings during the month. So I was really proud of my staff. However, even given that, though, closings are a little bit more difficult because, especially if we have someone from out of state who can't come here for signing and they want to do it there in their home state. Well, what are their restrictions? Are they allowed to leave the house? Can they find a notary? If they go out of the house, do they have to wear masks? Do they need to make an appointment? So there's a lot more planning surrounding the actual signing of the closing documents than we might have normally done in the past. South Carolina, we do not have a remote online notarization statute. And if we did, it would make my job a whole lot easier. So any of you House or Senate members out there listening to Todd's podcast, please get on the ball.
Yeah, actually, we spoke with that with one of the House of Representatives a couple of weeks ago, and he's all for that too. So maybe it will change, hopefully. And, and and just in real estate, we're so busy right now. The inventory is very low, and it's a great seller's market. So if you're looking to sell, now's a great time. But I think what happened, Angie, was that so many people were sitting at home and stuck in their home that they were just surfing online and saying, my house is, and I got, for those of you that watch every week, I know you've seen this a million times or heard this a million times, but I think that the people that sat at home said, my house is too small, I need something larger, or it's too large, I need something smaller. And even the people up north that have said multiple times that if I'm going to be stuck in my house, I'd rather be at the beach, and they couldn't come because all the hotels were shut down. So now they're buying up that inventory. So that's pretty cool. So,
well, and too, Todd, those that are up north, if they've been able to completely transfer to a work from home situation with their job, then there's no reason why they can't move down here to the beach for us.
Exactly. And we're seeing a lot of that already, which that's smart.
Yeah.
And, I actually talked to a gentleman that has a company that they're working from home, but the thing that they said was that their business, their company, is saving a ton of money in ways he never even thought about. He said, not only do you not need the office space, he said you can cut down on the phone bills, you can cut down on the electricity, you can cut down on the taxes, because now you don't need as large of a space to do it. So that's pretty cool. Hey, Stacy, I see you there. Stacy just made a comment. So let's talk about, let's say that I'm looking to buy or sell real estate. What advice would you give me for either one, for buyer side or the seller side?
Well, for a buyer, I would definitely say first and foremost, talk to a lender, find out what you can afford to buy. Do not search for properties until you know what you can afford, what you're comfortable with, what the bank's willing to lend you. And then after you find that dollar amount out, then hire a good realtor, because they're going to find you the most opportunities. They know how to search. Exactly, Todd. They know how to search that MLS and find what you're looking for. They can show you the exact properties that meet your criteria. And so you're not blindly searching like you might when you just Google on the internet, right? For a seller, I would say that first and foremost, again, having a good realtor. You need to talk to that realtor up front, and you need to find someone that you trust that will be straight with you. Because if they don't give you good advice about how to stage the property, what needs upkeep, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be taken care of before you list it, then your property is going to be on the market for too long, and the purchase price is going to go down, down, down. So having a good realtor who's going to give you honest, clear advice is really important for a seller.
And as long as the longer it stays on the market, then buyers or potential buyers would be saying, what's wrong with it? Why isn't it sold yet? So
yes, the longer it's there, the more they wonder what's wrong with that property.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say that once the process starts and you're under contract, how soon does your office come into play? How soon do they get into the game?
As soon as we have a contract, your agent always sends it over to us. And so we begin getting into the process. And our first job is to order title. And that typically is going to take about 2 weeks. So we want to be in the process early on. As soon as you've got that signed contract, then get it over to us and let us get started.
Yeah. And one of the things I've seen from the lender side recently, because we're so busy, is that the appraisals are taking forever. I've got 3 or 4 that have been held up waiting on the appraisal.
Yeah. And, part of that, if you've already got your lender's approval and they already know what you're buying and they're in the loop in the beginning too, then that will help with that slow down a little bit as well, because they're going to already be expecting to have to get the appraiser on it. So you want to get your contract to the lender as well as soon as possible, because they've got to be able to get the lender involved and the appraisers, that list started. So it's important to just really move on things in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree with you. So now, obviously, you're a very busy person. So if I'm a buyer or a seller and I call into your office, you're not the one I'm going to speak to, I'm assuming. So how does that process work? If you
you probably won't get me. If you do get me, it's because it's after 7 and I just happen to pick up the phone.
Right.
Right. But most of the time, you're gonna, our receptionist is gonna answer. If we've already got a file open, she's gonna get information from you so she can figure out who your team is. We have teams here at Grand Strand Law Group, and so you're gonna have an assistant, a real estate assistant, and a real estate paralegal. So depending upon what step of the process your file is going to depend on who she transfers that call to. If it's in the very beginning and you're just trying to get some upfront information, she's going to transfer you to the assistant so that they can help with all those upfront tasks. And if it's near the end and you're getting ready to close and you have questions, they're going to transfer you to the paralegal.
Right. And you know that here's a great point for everyone listening that's looking to buy or sell. And this goes not only from your realtor, it also goes with your real estate attorney as well as your lender. If they request a document, get it to them as soon as you possibly can, because that is what takes so long in the process, is collecting that information on your side and getting it to the right person. So yeah, absolutely stay on top of things. So Angie, how soon can someone get an estimated cost for closing on the buyer or seller side, and how often does that vary, or how much does that estimate change, or what could cause it to change during that process?
So if you're out there and you're searching and you're looking to buy, you think you just want to get an idea of how much it's going to cost you to purchase a property as far as closing costs go, then you can actually call our office and we can give you a spreadsheet that lists not only our fees, but also the deed stamps, which is basically county and state tax, the deed stamps that are associated with that property based on your purchase price. So we'll give you deed stamp costs based on your purchase price. We'll give you title insurance costs based on your purchase price. And then we'll give you all of our fees that are possible to exist. So you would know the maximum amount that it might cost. And some things are going to be a little different, some things might be less. We not need to overnight a package for you, or we might need to. So it's, but you can get a really good idea of what your closing costs from our end are going to be. Now with your bank, once they know what property you're going to buy, they're going to send you an estimate up front. So they're going to estimate a bunch of things based on the knowledge that they have regarding the property and your loan. So you're going to get an idea from that as well. When it gets closer to your closing date, we're going to be receiving from the bank a closing disclosure, probably around the same time you do, that tries to give you a closer, look at what the final product is. And so then we combine our information with their information, and then you're going to get a final closing disclosure from my office, and that one should be the most accurate one, and it should hopefully not change until you sign. So that usually happens preferably 2 days before your closing. Sometimes, unfortunately, it does happen at the last minute, but we do try to at least get you a good idea.
Sure. And then some of the numbers that could change a little bit is if your closing date has to move for whatever reason, because you're waiting on something to come in, the appraisal or title work or whatever, then your homeowners association dues, your taxes, those things are prorated based on a per day number. So those can change a little bit with that.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, that's cool. I tell you what, I see Beverly's on here again too. Hey, Beverly. Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, reminding you that if you have any questions, please type them in your comments on whatever platform you're watching on, as well as you can call in at 843-246-7474, and we'll get you on your air, and we'll see Angie just on the other side of the break. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back. Every client is unique and has different needs. Whether it's a growing family, a first-time buyer, an investor, or someone looking to downsize, I am here to help guide them through the process. My name is Todd Cartner. I am a realtor with Exit Coastal Real Estate Pros. I serve Myrtle Beach and the surrounding area, and there is no place I would rather have my family call home. You need a realtor you can trust and will put your needs first. I want to become your lifetime realtor. If you are looking to buy or sell real estate, please give me a call. I look forward to speaking with you soon. All right, guys, welcome back to Myrtle Beach Living Live. I'm Todd Cartner, your host, and my guest today is Angie Knight with Grand Strand Law Group. And reminding you once again, if you have any questions, please type them in the comments and we'll try to get those answered here during the show. Or you can call in live at 843-246-7474. Angie, I don't know if I'm asking this right, but how should someone hold title to the property? Did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir. So one of the questions that you're going to get from our office, and we have an amazing digital online phone app that you can use and email service that we communicate with our clients with is secure. But one of the questions that it sends you automatically in the beginning is, how do you want to hold title to your property? And so for the most part, your options are either, well, it's just me, so it's just going to be in my name, right? That's sole ownership. Or joint tenants with right of survivorship. And what that one means is that if one of you were to pass away, it would automatically belong to the other party. The other option is tenants in common, and that means that I own 50%, Todd owns 50%. We don't share ownership. If I pass away, my ownership goes pursuant to my will, right? Todd's would do the same. Or tenants in common with an indestructible right of survivorship. That's a new one in the area. It's probably less well known, but it's essentially a right of survivorship deed, so that if someone does pass away, it would automatically pass over to the other person on the deed. But it also has some creditor protection. And so when clients call in, we have a lovely, wonderful example of all that written out. They can take a look, read it, decide what's best for them and their family. And of course, if they have any questions, I'm happy to answer them and give them my personal opinion about how they should hold title based on their circumstances. So it's not just an automatic. If you have another attorney who is closing on a property, make sure they ask you that question. You do not want them to assume how you want to hold title.
Yeah. And that's funny you just brought that up, because we had this this issue last week. Every state is different. Every county is different the way they do things. And one of the issues that came up last week was I was representing the buyer, and they did not understand that you also were not representing the seller. So in our specific area, you can have an attorney that represents each one that's not inside the same office. And so that's why that communication is important. And if you are the buyer, make sure that you do ask your attorney that question so that you know.
Yeah, I mean, because things are different here than any other place in the world. So you may be coming from another area in South Carolina, or you may be coming from out of state, and things are just different in every location. No matter where you go, things are going to be different. Whether that's who represents who, how many attorneys you have involved, when you come to the closing, do you come to the closing table together, how you should hold title to that property, so there's a lot of different things that go into it. So feel free to ask your attorney and their staff questions along with your realtor, and they can help you through the process. And the more questions you ask, the easier the process will be for you, because you'll understand and know what to expect.
Yeah, great advice there. Okay, with the changes that you mentioned earlier with COVID-19 and how it's affected your office a little bit, how's that affected getting recording to the courthouse? And how soon can we hand over the keys to the buyer and the profit check to the seller? Hopefully it's a profit check.
Yeah, right. We want them to make money.
Right.
So in Horry County specifically, I think that overall it's probably sped up the process a little bit, because everybody nowadays is pretty much doing e-recording or online recording. So it got really fast there for a few days. For a little while, we were recording within an hour of the signing. Well, I think now it's sort of starting to back off, because they're getting overwhelmed at the Register of Deeds with all the online recording. So all in all, I think the process is faster, because as soon as you sign, if I've got that deed, I'm able to go in there and upload it and get it in line for recording. So all in all, I think it's recording faster, which allows us to give out the keys faster. There are also a lot more attorneys doing table funding, which means essentially that we're agreeing that the seller will give the buyer the keys once they sign, and we have all the buyer's money, right? As long as the seller is going to get their money as soon as we have their deed. So it's helping to speed things along a little bit, because everybody's recognizing the fact that there are situations that we cannot control, and that we have to be a little generous and a little understanding when it comes to signing keys, recording, things like that.
So that brings up a good question. So from a legal standpoint, once the buyer has signed their documents and the seller has signed their documents, is it legally the buyer's property at that point?
Depends on who you ask and where you live.
True. Depends on which side of 17 you're on, I guess. But
So when I went to law school in New Orleans, Louisiana, and
oh,
that was an amazing experience. But when I was in law school, if you ask my law school professors, they will say as soon as everything is signed, it's official. Right here in Horry County, the expectancy, the tendency, the heritage is that it would not be the buyer's property until it records. Okay. So until we get that tendency to change, and more people are moving away from that. I guess it's just a trend, right? It's the way we always done things. So more and more attorneys are moving away from that trend and moving towards the signing date and signing documents as being the day, because every other county in South Carolina considers when you sign, it's done. So we're moving away from it, I think, all in all, but it's still a very big trend here in Horry County. So depending upon who your attorneys are and your agents are, it's possible you may not get the keys until it records.
Right. Well, and that makes sense. So this is a question I get a lot. People have to take off work in order to attend their closing. How long does it typically take on the buyer side and on the seller side? And I see Dana is here from the West Coast in Portland. Hey, Dana. Welcome and thanks for joining us. So how long does it typically take for closing for a buyer and a seller?
So I always set aside 1 hour for a buyer if they have a loan. If it is a cash buyer or a seller, then I would set aside 30 minutes. And so I don't always use all that time. It depends. I try to make sure that the client has all the information that they need. Some clients have more questions than others. If a client is a repeat client and they know what they're doing and they've done this 1,000 times, then I can do their buyer side loan in under 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it just depends on how much knowledge that client has. What do I need to share with them? But I can give them all the information they need within an hour for a lender closing and 30 minutes for a seller or cash buyer.
Yeah. And you, on our end, from the real estate side or your side as the attorney, the more you do, the easier it becomes. And it's almost just like a robot type thing. But it is important for the buyer or the seller, if you have questions, to stop for a second and say, hey, can you explain this a little bit more? Because we're here to work for you. So that's the important thing, is to make sure that you get the information that you need and that you are that you walk away satisfied with your process.
Absolutely. You should never leave the closing table, no matter who your attorney is, with questions that are unanswered. If you don't understand something, stop them, have them explain it, because that's their job. That's our job, and we want to make sure we do our job for you.
Right. I agree. All right. One last thing before we wrap this up. I know that you do some things other than real estate, but they go along with real estate because they could be affected by it. So let's talk a little bit about those, if you will, of what services you offer, and then what some of those entail, and maybe why they're important to people.
Okay. All right. So real estate is one of our main gigs, right? We talked about that, but it's often affected by other things such as estate planning and probate and business law. Okay. Those are my other three gigs. Those are the other three things that I focus on. So estate planning. Remember earlier I mentioned how you hold title to your property and making sure that you do it the way you want to, right? That is really important when it comes to estate planning. So if you don't have a will, right, we want to know, how is that property going to pass automatically if you don't have a will? Do you have other assets that we need to deal with? Do we need to get you a will, a durable power of attorney, or healthcare power of attorney to round out your entire plan so that you can prepare for your family and that they're taken care of? It may be great that you have a house with a joint tenants right of survivorship deed, and because that's what you told us you wanted and we discussed it, we thought that was a great idea for you. But then let's say you have 5 bank accounts, a car, and another house in Wyoming that you didn't touch and you didn't do anything with, right? That means that while this house here in South Carolina is going to go easy peasy to your spouse, right, with the flick of a button, it's not, all the rest of this other property is going to be a pain because you don't have a will, you haven't done estate planning, we haven't made any changes to those properties or those assets to make sure that they can automatically transfer to your spouse as well. So that's a lot of the estate planning process that I do. Also, just to note, in South Carolina, if you pass away without a will, your property is going to go 50% to your spouse and 50% to your kids if you are married with children. Okay. That is usually not what people want. They want everything to go to their spouse. That's not the case in South Carolina. If you don't have a will, please call me. I'll be happy to get you one. The other aspect of things that I do that affect real estate would be probate. So quite often I represent personal representatives or, the children whose parents have passed away. They've called Todd. They want to sell their property, but they haven't done an estate or probate for their family, for their mom or dad or whoever's passed. And so when that happens, they call me. I take care of getting the estate started so that we then have the authority to sell that real estate, right? And, part of my job when I do that title search, if there was an estate in your history, so if you're buying a property and someone had passed away, I'm searching that estate to make sure none of the family members are going to pop their head up and say, wait a second, I didn't get my share. So all that really works well together. And then the other typical kind of client I have would be an LLC, right? I have a lot of investor clients. They want to buy, they want to invest property, they want to rent those out. Well, we often create LLCs for them. We help them manage those LLCs by making sure that they keep all the proper paperwork in place so that they're secure and safe, and the LLC is doing its job and protecting them from any liability on those properties that they're renting out. So those are the other things that I do, and they all tie into real estate, and that's really why I do those.
Right, and that's awesome. I do work with a lot of investors, and that makes perfect sense from that standpoint. On the wills, how often should someone update their will? I know if something major changes, like you have another kid or get divorced or whatever it may be, but how often should they keep those updated?
I would take a look at them every 5 years. Obviously, if you buy a house, if you move, if you have a kid, get divorced, get married, all those events, you're going to want to update your will. But otherwise, I would look at it every 5 years. You may not need to update it, but every 10 years. It depends on when you did your first one. But I'll tell you, Todd, so many of my clients are older clients. I want young people to come see me about their wills. If you're 18 and you don't have a will, a durable power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, then you don't have anything in place. And you may think, oh, I don't own anything. I'm 18, right? Well, the next thing you know, you'll be 50 and you own a lot of stuff and you still don't have a will. Right. So, it's important. Young couples with children, if you don't have a will, then you're placing your kids' futures in jeopardy because we haven't named who we want to be their guardian if something happens to both their parents. We don't have their money straight so that they can use that money that you've left them in a life insurance policy or the house so that they can use that money for their child's care. It's not in place. It's a lot. If you have a child who's under 18 and they end up getting assets from an estate, it's a big to-do. It's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of time to be able to get that money in that child's name. And then they're not going to be able to really use that money for that child. So young couples out there, please, please, please come see me.
Yeah. Beverly says you updated her 4 years ago. So we know what Beverly's going to be doing next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point as well with the being 18 years old. If you have a bank account and you have $10, $12, $15,000 saved up in your bank account and something were to happen to you, that money would go to the state too, initially, if you don't have a will, right?
If you don't have a will, it would eventually get to your parents. But the process of making that happen is so much more difficult.
And so long.
Right. Right. And it's a waste of your parents' money and their time when we can make it like at the drop of a hat, easy peasy for them. And the other thing that I think every 18-year-old needs to have is a durable power of attorney, naming their parents as the agent who's able to make financial decisions for them if they were incapacitated. All right. Nobody wants to think about their child having an accident, but if your child does, you need to have the authority to make decisions for them and take care of their health and their finances. That's why every child over 18 needs a health care and a durable power of attorney.
And you know what, folks, it's not that expensive. It's very reasonable to have those things done and very important.
It is cheap when you think about what it's going to cost if you don't have them and something happens.
Right, exactly. Well, Angie, thank you for joining us today. Thanks to all those that tuned in and watched today. We appreciate it. If you have any other questions, you can still put them in the comments after the show. And if I can't answer them, I'll definitely reach out to Angie and get the answer for you. But Angie, we appreciate you joining us. And guys, we will see you next week. Next week, we will have on Michael Washburn, who is from he's the president of Exit Realty of the Carolinas, and he will be joining us Wednesday of next week. And guys, we appreciate it once again, and take care. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.